You know, I'm here, right? I wake up just having some coffee, trying to go about my day. And I open the news, my own website, and it says the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services purchases $290 million in nuclear emergency drugs. The United States has purchased $290 million in nuclear emergency drugs. It is a drug to help you with acute radiation sickness. I wonder why. I don't really trust what the government is doing, but, sometimes they're telling you exactly what they're doing. So we had this PSA in New York City about how to survive a nuclear strike. And everybody said, why? At a certain point, maybe it's just they're showing you their cards. NATO fully intends to press this war to the point where Putin may fire Z missiles. You realize we are going to destroy Russia, and they will retaliate. U.S. Department of Health and Human Services purchases $290 million in nuclear emergency drugs. 2004's Project BioShield Act grants BARDA authority to appropriate funds for the purpose of Nplate, which treats blood cell injuries that accompany acute radiation syndrome in adult and pediatric patients. Your government deeply, deeply cares about you. ARS, also known as radiation sickness, or is it acute radiation syndrome, occurs when a person's entire body is exposed to a high dose of penetrating radiation, reaching internal organs in a matter of seconds. Symptoms of ARS injuries include impaired blood clotting as a result of low platelet counts, which can lead to uncontrolled and life-threatening bleeding. To reduce radiation-induced bleeding, Nplate stimulates the body's production of platelets. The drug can be used to treat adults and children. Nplate is also approved for adult and pediatric patients with immune thrombocytopenia, a blood disorder resulting in low platelet counts. Repurposing drugs for acute radiation syndrome that also are approved for a commercial indication helps to sustain availability of the product and improves healthcare provider familiarity with the drug. Are we going to get nuked? HHS announcement comes after months of rising tensions in the Russian-Ukraine conflict, with Russian President Vladimir Putin suggesting the possible use of nuclear weapons. The will of the people has been entirely subverted. Let's just be serious. How many people actually want this war in Ukraine? How many people actually want to fund this insanity? Did we declare war? I can't remember. Did Congress formally declare war? When was the last time they did that? Was that World War II? Do you think Vladimir Putin is a stupid man? He may be irrational. He may be angry. He may be smart. I don't know. I think he's probably a smart guy. I would say you'd be dumb to think he wasn't a smart guy. I mean, somebody who's risen to that level of power and prominence, he's got something working for him. Do you think he looks at these stories and he's like, yeah, but, U.S. hasn't formally declared war, so I'm not really at war with the United States? Do you think he's sitting there saying, like, I know that the U.S. has special operations inside Ukraine, that United States citizens are fighting in Ukraine, that the U.S. is providing weapons to Ukraine, and these veterans that volunteered to be there are being armed by the United States, but they're not at war with me, so I can't retaliate. I want there to be a legal action. Tell me, courts, that this is not a war the United States is engaged in. I think the federal government will just spit on you and say they can do whatever they want because this country is corrupt. It's unfortunate. It's a great country. I think it's one of the best, if not the best, on the planet. But you see what's happening. It's been happening for a long time. It's been happening slowly over the past 100 years. American citizens are on the ground in Ukraine, fighting. They are armed by the United States government. They are trained by the United States government. The U.S. has actual intelligence and special operations officially on the ground in Ukraine. They're providing Apache helicopters and other weapons to NATO allies surrounding the conflict and providing them directly to the Ukrainians. Oh, is that 5? 6, the U.S. is providing intelligence being utilized by the Ukrainians. I'll do air quotes for that. By the Ukrainians. And they used that to sink the flagship of the Russian Black Sea Fleet. You mean to tell me we're not at war? I think Vladimir Putin is going to get boxed in. Putin's going to say, I want to see the United States justify a nuclear strike on Russia. The war is in Ukraine right now. Russia is fighting in the Eastern Front. For what reason would the U.S. have to nuke Russia proper? None. That's what Vladimir Putin's going to say. He's going to say, I can strike Kiev and the U.S. will not be able to justify a nuclear strike on Moscow or any comparable Russian city. It would mean full-scale conventional war. NATO would flood in. Vladimir Putin he already believes he's at war with NATO. What is the difference? If he has to, he will. A nuclear strike on Kiev would be devastating, and it would just rock the Ukrainian fighting force to their core.